Pastor Joel and Pastor Jonathan from the Music of Life churches, both Kimberly and Appleton, the head pastors. What a pleasure. Always good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you guys doing
Thanks
today?
for having us. I'm
Doing
great,
man.
Yeah, really good.
That's awesome. So we've hit the end of season 2. How does it feel?
Fantastic. Yeah, it's been a big project so far. Seasons 1 and 2 were getting our legs under us a lot. Now, really excited for the direction this podcast is going moving forward. But season 2, I really think we hit our stride. So I'm very, very proud of the episodes we did for season 2.
Right. Absolutely. Jonathan, what about you?
It's nice to feel like we know how to do a podcast.
So
you just really sit down and start talking about the subject. As there's some prep that's involved, but now that we've had some foundation has been established, and this is great. I think we're starting to have a lot of fun. It's not as much of a job feeling as it was like, how do we do this? Now it's, we know how to do this.
Yeah.
So it's getting better.
Absolutely. And I mean, all of the podcasts have been great, but I have noticed as you guys keep going, there is a more natural feel to it. And it's very clear how close the two of you are, that as you guys get together and start talking, it's almost like, I can't wait till we, get through this so we can talk about everything else. We're going to hang out for another 4 hours after this. What is it like doing a project like this kind of outreach, this kind of ministry with someone who is such a close friend? I get the feeling that a lot of pastors and ministers don't get that opportunity, that it's a lot of kind of more work relationships, less friendships. How is that different?
Yeah. I think we're set up. There's a few variables at play here that I think could answer how we are able to work together so well, and also why it doesn't always work this great. Jonathan and I complement each other really well. The things that I'm really strong at and the things that he's really strong at are not only very different, but they're at opposite ends of this spectrum. So that helps. So I think naturally, the way God created us, we naturally fit together really well when working on a project, because basically the whole spectrum of things that need to be covered in order for a project to be successful are handled by him and I just being ourselves. So that's why there's energy and all this joy, really, of us working together. So that doesn't always work, because not every pastor who wants to work with someone else has a lot of times there's just not the fit like me and Jonathan have with one another. So we're blessed to have that. But also, with that aside, the thing that I think anybody, regardless of who you are and how well you uniquely fit together, could learn what they could learn from what we're able to do, and what we've learned to be able to work together is really recognizing what it means to be interdependent with a person, and being able, and not neither Pastor Jonathan and I are trying to be in charge or trying to boss the other person around. We're trying to set each other up. We're trying to and you can see this particularly in these podcasts. You can see him a lot of times setting me up to be able to teach, and really that's one of the ways both of us shine in our uniqueness, is he is this champion of people, this amazing pastor, and I love teaching. So we work really together like that. But something anybody could learn regardless of your uniqueness is really just recognizing the way to work together is to be interdependent. It's like neither of us are dependent on the other person, and neither of us is trying to be in charge and be the independent person. We're both just trying to set each other up into the best position we can be to be successful and to really live out the purpose God's given us.
Yeah. And what does it feel like? It feels like really safe. The fact that Joel wants to share and is so good at sharing first. Like I feel like his brain is a lot quicker than mine. So even in these interviews, I love the fact that he answers first and he's diving in and he's taking this risk so that I can sit there and come up with a really interesting idea.
Or actually answer the question by saying, how does it feel? like, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't actually tell you how it feels to work with Jonathan. I explained the technicalities of it.
so which is amazing because here's how I want to answer how it feels, Andrew. Have you seen the musical Hamilton?
I have.
And Pastor Joel, you have as well, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So the first time I saw Hamilton, after it was over, what is the show? It's like 2 hours long, maybe a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
When that 2 hours was done, those people are singing their guts out. They are dancing. They are giving it 100%. Everyone's doing their role. Everyone's in the right position. And when that show was done, I felt that is a completely sufficient amount of time to be doing something during the day. Meaning like your musical and that performance completely justifies 24 hours of existence. Where it's like you put everything into that time and it was awesome. It was like an emotional journey, full spectrum, all of those things.
So do you mean like if they got done with their, let's say it was a matinee, the matinee got done at 1 p.m. They have earned the right to not have to do anything the rest of the day?
That's the feeling.
Okay.
Where I'm like, I'm leaving going, oh, that was great for the day.
I had a good day.
You did it.
Because of this. Yeah, okay.
This was so profitable. This built so much value.
Exactly. That it's like all of these people had this experience, like we're crying, we're laughing, we're singing. It's just like, oh my goodness, these people are amazing. There's very few moments in my life where I feel that way, that I provided that type of experience for people. Church is one of those things where it's like, man, our Sunday and our services and all of that is a time where I experience it. Another time where I experience that is this podcast. So when we shoot the podcast, when we record it, when we do it, and oftentimes we're shooting, 4 episodes. So we're doing a What the Flock episode, a Music of Life Church episode to commentate on that What the Flock episode. And then we turn around and we do another one.
Yeah,
and
back to back. Yeah.
Exactly. And when we're done with that, there is this amazing feeling of accomplishment that we have, like, this is truly going to impact the world. And there's this feeling of like, oh, I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah. That is a great way to sum it up. It is. It guarantees that day I can look back at that day on my schedule and know no matter what else happened that day, because we did that, it was a good day.
Bingo. Because
we did that, it was a good day. Yeah.
And because I got to work with Pastor Joel and we learned so much about ourselves and so much about each other. It's like, it's a musical, when you go to see a musical, you go, man, those guys are such great friends. Oh, they got to be having fun.
Yeah. These people probably like hanging out after the show and like they're going to get dinner and going out after and celebrating. It's like, yeah.
That's a beautiful description. It makes me want to, as soon as we're done here, go find any one of my friends and go, let's build something together.
I thought you were going to say it makes me want to go watch the musical Hamilton on Disney Plus. Yeah.
And then not do anything else because of
see what that's really like.
Yeah. It's also being in a band, that's what it feels like, because our producer is so crucial with everything. So it's not just Pastor Joel and I.
We get to come and we get to come on your show, Andrew, and it is like, you you're part of we're part of your band for these interviews you're doing, and you get to be part of that experience. It's like me and Pastor Jonathan. It's like we're on tour, and then we get to go and play with another band for a show before we go back on tour. So you're part of that, man. It's fun. I've really enjoyed the interviews. The interviews that you've hosted have been really, really great.
Oh, it's great having the two of you, because you guys are such excellent guests. I think interviewing is a talent, but being interviewed is a whole other talent. In that regard, when you do have guests like the two of you who are so close, I'm curious, what's something that you admire about the other person that people don't immediately recognize? I'm not talking what's the thing that everyone should have known by now, or what's the most awesome thing that people don't just something that people don't immediately see about the other person that you look up to.
Okay. This is real. One, I want to say this. Jonathan's ability, he's very internally sensitive, but his ability to maintain a countenance about him, that what he's feeling on the inside doesn't distract people from communicating with him, is beyond anybody's ability I've ever met. And he's my standard of what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to earn I call it my Jonathan badge. And it's really this ability to absorb the blow of tension. And it is this ability it's okay to feel things really strongly on the inside. But in order to be a leader, and in order to be strategic, and in order to be, frankly, a loving person to others, I have to know what's the right amount of emotion to exhibit externally. Pastor Jonathan does that better than anybody I've ever met. So that's something I really look up to him for. But I'll say this, I think the thing that he is misunderstood the greatest in, and honestly, it might partly be his fault because of how he talks about how smart other people are and how his brain doesn't work as fast as mine. Pastor Jonathan's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And seriously, and
thank you.
He is way more strategic than he gives himself credit for. And I think the reason he's misunderstood this way is because he's really careful with how he communicates. He's careful with even the way his brain might not work as fast as mine, but it's not because his brain's worse. It's because he's a lot more careful in where he brings his brain a lot. So like more cautious than I tend to be. So, but as far as like what this man's wisdom, the understanding of doctrine that he has, his ability to his knowledge of the Bible and his understanding and ability to interpret God's word, I'd put him up there with anybody. So that would be, so yeah, I look up to him and I want to try to emulate him in this way of like, I need to be able to be the sensitive guy on the inside while having tough skin and not distracting people with my emotion, because I can get pretty fierce and people feel that real strongly from me. But where I think he is generally misunderstood, probably because of how nice he is people don't know how smart he is. So that's another area I really look up to him, is for he's able to be really smart and nice.
Yeah.
I have a hard time being smart and nice. I'm more smart and harsh.
Which is a perfect lead into what I think about Pastor Joel that people don't understand is Pastor Joel, I believe, is sensitive. He and his sensitivity and is related to the truth. So I think there's a misconception with people who are, like I am definitely, I would say I'm more gentle than Pastor Joel. But oftentimes I'm not less emotional. Oftentimes Pastor Joel is more emotional than I am about certain topics. So what is causing Pastor Joel to be so, emotional about a topic? It's if someone is hurting someone else by using misinformation. Someone is hurting someone else by teaching wrong information about God. So what a lot of people don't see is that, Pastor Joel might come across as someone who's, you go like, why does that person believe that? It's so stupid to believe that. But all of that, where it's coming from, of this place of, this person, if they had the right information or believed in the right information, imagine the progress and the leader that they could become. So a lot of it is this drive to actually help people become leaders. Like the drive behind all of this is oftentimes it's people who are not, they're not leaders, they're bosses, hurting other people with wrong doctrine, with wrong teaching, with wrong information. And it's preventing the next generation of leaders, of church leaders to flourish. So it's coming from that place. It's not coming from a place of, I need to be the teacher, because Pastor Joel is one of the most teachable people that I have ever met in my life.
I've experienced that. Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. Who can, like, I don't know. There's a very small group of people that are as intelligent as Pastor Joel, that if I learn something, I walk up to him and he goes, whoa, I did not know that. And I am so excited about what it is that you just taught me that I'm going to teach it as quickly as I possibly can to 15 other people.
Yeah.
Like that is incredible to me. So, all of that. And I think his thirst for understanding and helping people be leaders is coming from a place of care. It's a care for God, and it's a care for his people. So
we both care a lot. We just care about different things in a different way. And man, yeah. Pastor Jonathan just showed how good of a friend he is, because he says things about me that put words to my feelings that I wouldn't have been able to articulate about myself. So yeah, he knows me really well. And thank you, Pastor Jonathan. That meant a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love how both of your answers were basically, I feel like this is something that someone would have said they look up to you in, and you're going, oh, this is what I look up to him in. I feel like, Joel, it sounds like your answer is kind of, people kind of lump smart with technical. But I mean, I've had this experience with Pastor Jonathan teaching me how to be strategic and wise. And people say I'm good at that. I learned it from him.
Right.
I think people miss that. And I think you're right. I think he's so nice, and he's never going to say he's the smart guy in a room.
Right. Although he often is.
He often is. Absolutely.
He doesn't operate directly in that role. He usually is the one who's the upfront, the caring guy. Yeah.
Right. It reminds me of how King David was very wise, was very strategic in how he approached things. That's what I think of when I think of Jonathan. And
Thank you, Andrew. This has been a great podcast. Great interview.
Like, you kidding me? King David.
That's fine. I'll just I'll see you guys. That's all I needed.
Take that affirmation.
That is an affirmation. I'm gonna put it in my affirmation fanny pack, and I'll see you guys in 72 hours. No, that's incredible.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But and Jonathan, your response about Joel, I feel that. I feel that strongly. It's not I just care so much about people saying the correct thing. I'm not just being a stickler for facts. It's if we have this stuff wrong, we're gonna hurt somebody. Yeah. Let's get this right so we can help people. I want these people to be helped, I think you're right. I think people miss that about Pastor Joel, that he does. He cares so much. And I think you can see that if you ever learn something new or give a teaching. Pastor Joel, like we have a Wednesday night service at Music of Life Church Kimberly, and people will be guest speakers. And Pastor Joel is usually the first one to respond to them, to tell them how much he loved their teaching.
I love that.
It's the most encouraging thing.
It is. And part of the exciting thing about Pastor Joel too is that he cares so much about the truth, and I would say that he is a defender of God. I would say that he defends God and God's truth. And part of being a defender of God's truth is being such a fan of God's truth.
Oh yeah.
And who he is, that you could say to Pastor Joel, you know, in every sermon, truth, like for example, God being right and just. And Pastor Joel, you know, God's nature is always and completely right and just. And Pastor Joel will just sit there and smile and be like, yes, and react to it like it's the first time he's heard it.
Yeah. Amen.
That is
Amen.
so exciting. He's just a huge fan of God. He's a huge fan of what comes forth from God. It's awesome.
Right. He's the first one to give a woo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. So I want to move on and talk a little bit more about the season, about the podcast. I want to ask, what was your proudest moment from this season, from season 2? We went a long ways. We started with who is God, and we got all the way to the most personal, sensitive topic I think that modern Christians deal with of, are you saved? I think a lot of people are scared to even consider it. So what was your favorite moment?
Well, I mean, the entire God's Nature series was just baller, but I really think the Once Saved, Always Saved was my favorite. It's probably just for personal reasons. I've had the Once Saved, Always Saved debate multiple times, and it's never gone as well as the advice that me and Pastor Jonathan are giving people on our podcast. So I learned a lot through that, and how I would like to handle future, I won't even say debates, but discussions about that topic, because debating is not healthy unless the two people on either side are actually trying to understand the other person. Usually debates don't get anywhere because neither side is trying to understand the other person, and either side, both sides are really, they're just there to prove their point, which leads them to just becoming more biased in their beliefs than humble, and no one ends up learning anything. But that, I think there was some profound moments in that episode where I really realized the right way to handle this is not to really talk about whether or not once saved, always saved is true. In fact, it felt like, and I think I may have even alluded to this in either the What the Flock or the Mulk podcast on the Once Saved, Always Saved topic, is that this really feels like salvation part 2. It's like we're not even really talking about once saved, always saved. There's this moment in the episode where I'm like, oh, like we still have to answer if once saved, always saved is that, like we haven't even said yes or no, because we're not even really talking about it. We're just, if you talk about salvation the right way, if you understand salvation the way God intends us to understand it, the once saved, always saved topic dissolves itself, and it really becomes a non-issue, because it's a distracting focus, really. So that's why, to me, that's like one of these topics that's like the culmination of what we're trying to do at What the Flock, where it's like, here's this topic that's very familiar with a lot of people. Here's this topic that causes a lot of division in the church, a topic that's caused a lot of damage. And we're able to discuss it in a way that is really, really clear, that helps anybody who listens to it. It helps anybody, regardless of what side of this topic you're on, it helps people who've never even heard of this topic before have a better understanding of salvation. And not only that, but having grown up, having heard this, so it is a personal topic as well. I've been damaged by that topic. So that's why, not only doctrinally in the production of the episode itself and the content and the discussion with Pastor Jonathan, but that was one of these things that brought me healing when I got the ultimate answer that God would want us to have.
So it was very personal to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's great. What I'm most proud of is actually what you were saying originally, Andrew, where you said, season 2 it sounds like you guys kind of caught your stride. So what I'm most proud of is I just feel like we're experiencing a lot more of that flow state together in those moments. Like we're learning a lot more about how we do this in season 2, and our interactions with Pastor Richard Tater are getting, more deep. Like he's sharing more and we're sharing more. And that's what I'm the most proud of, is that this is actually something this is actually something that's good,
Right.
This isn't another crap podcast.
Right.
And that's the way I feel about it. I feel like we're actually we have momentum, and when season 2 was over, there's a feeling of we have some momentum and let's go do another series. So that feeling of wanting to do it again and having our stride I'm just really proud of that.
It's a great answer.
That's amazing. So you brought up Pastor Richard Tater. He got through restoration. What a great lesson. What a great example. And it made me wonder, what was your restoration experience like? Where did you come from? What before you really found God? How did you grow into this, frankly, mature person that people look up to? I imagine you weren't always like that. What got you to this point, and what really got you to the point of realizing, I want to be a pastor?
Wow. All right, this is fun. I love talking restoration stories. This is
awesome.
Same.
And restoration and leadership. I mean, this is really at the heart of Music Life Church, and and also Music Life, specific to the restoration process at Music Life Church Kimberly, and kind of showing my ability to do what I encourage all of the people at my church to do as well.
Right.
So for me, the number one thing that restoration really helped me, there's so many things I learned, and it really helped my life get in control. I was out of control. And unfortunately, I have one of those traditional stories of I hit bottom. My life fell apart. It had to get really bad. I had to experience all this bad circumstances in order for me to get my life in order, which is fine. A lot of us have stories like that. But it was the thing that I think flipped a switch in my brain that we teach in restoration, and that still stays with me today, and actually is instructing me in being a better pastor as well, as when I learned about the principle of causality. This is how I internalized it. For every effect, there is a cause. And I remember sitting there when I was in my restoration process, hanging out with my coaches, and it hit me like, oh, my life sucks because of the decisions I've made. Which a lot of times when that realization hits people, it hits them like, oh, boo-hoo, condemnation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a horrible person, which is fine. And we can help people through that. And I have had moments like that. But what hit me in restoration was when I realized this aha moment of, I'm the reason. The decisions I've made have led me to this crappy place. my immediate response was to feel good about that, because I knew if I caused all these horrible effects, then I can cause all these great things to happen too.
Oh,
So
that's such a great point.
it really did instruct me. It was really healing, because it felt like and if you think about it, what we're trying to do in restoration is help out of control people get control of their lives. This was a moment of me where I felt more in control than the moment before it. Oh, these things don't just randomly happen to me. I'm not just like the exception to like everything. Like I'm the person on this world that all these bad things keep happening to, right? That's what it feels like when you're in the middle of that, right? But it was like this, oh, this happens to people, and I'm the reason this has happened to me, so I can be the person who fixes all these things. And then, the rest of restoration is really giving you the tools that you need in order to repair all those things that got you into this negative justice hole. And it, helped me crawl my way out of the hole that I was in, and then start thriving. And I'll tell you, here's how this all connects to me eventually being a pastor. I felt like this pretty quickly upon my born again experience. I felt this calling to be a leader in some capacity. And the same epiphany I had in restoration is still true for me today. And I still am experiencing this as recently as in the last couple of days. And a lot of this is just me looking up to and trying to emulate Pastor Jonathan. Pastor Jonathan is naturally a better pastor than me. He always will be. He is gifted in that way, in a way that I'm not. And something very recently in our churches went wrong. And when he went through and got all the information he needed to determine why is this wrong thing happening, his response was this: I can own this. He said those words and he smiled. And then he followed it by saying, the reason I'm smiling, he explained himself to me. He's like, because this means I have the power to help it be repaired. And what I learned from him, and what I consistently learned from him, is that becoming a pastor means more responsibility. And what that means with more responsibility, it's like you have this, it's great. We have the Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Right. There should be one more thing in addition to that. With great responsibility comes great requirement of blame.
Ooh.
That's really what it means to be responsible, is I answer for whatever this thing I'm responsible for.
Okay.
So it means, yes, I have the power to fix this thing, but it also means when things go wrong, I'm the person who answers for it. So being a pastor doesn't mean, yay, I'm in charge, I tell people what to do. It means God comes to me to ask me about the health of the people in the community that he's given me stewardship over. I stand before God and answer for the health of this community. Right? And there's the shivers with that, but it's also the thing that Pastor Jonathan and I thrive under. We want that. We want to carry that. It focuses us. It causes us to rise up to the challenge. And we really, ultimately, it comes from this place within both of us where we do it differently, but we really just want to help people. And we want God's kingdom to be advanced and to people experience that amazing joy that we can have when we're walking with the Lord. But that's really, for me, the restoration story, that epiphany I had, connects really at the heart of the same thing about being a pastor. Is really when I learned I am responsible, which means, yes, I have to take the blame, but it also means, yes, I can be part of the repair. It changed everything. And and it's still something. That's where it's like, this is a truth that stays with me regardless of the context that I'm in, whether it's just the man, Joel Swakowski, the dad with my son, Jack, the son to my mom and dad, or the pastor of Music Life Church, Kimberly. This is something that when I think about that and when that perspective guides me, everybody benefits from it. And it's really me just being a leader.
Yeah, I love that. And Pastor
Good
Joel, I
answer.
love when you go on these beautiful explanations because you get nice and small picture. And it's like, I'm a very big picture guy. So a lot of the time I'll go with you and I'll feel like I'm starting to get kind of lost. It's like we're out in the woods. And then you'll just point out one thing that feels totally new to me. And it's like, oh, you just take this path and you're right back to the city. It's like, I suddenly know where I am. And the point that you made there was if I did bad causes and that resulted in my life being a mess, I can just do good causes and make it better. I would have always thought, well, then I need to go back and fix those bad causes. But the way you said that, it tied it back to, love covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
What can I do for all of this bad stuff I've done? I can love.
Yeah.
It's profound. It was a profound, beautiful point. So thank you for that. I feel like I'm going to walk away from today with that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Pastor
Okay,
Jonathan,
so-
I would love to hear yours.
Yeah, man. I'd love to tell it. It's something that we talk about at Music of Life Church Appleton as well. We want people to get restored, and Music of Life Church Kimberly facilitates that for us. So thank you, Pastor Joel, and your leaders for helping our people be restored. It's incredible.
Yeah, and thanks for being the safe place for people to come as a first step so that they even have the courage to step into it. So that is the way our churches interdependently work. It's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. So my restoration story is I was 25 years old and I did not feel like a man. When I turned 25, I was like, shouldn't I feel like a man now? Like I can rent a car, so is that going to work? But it was this, I had a quarter life crisis. So in this quarter life crisis, I was like, I should feel like a man, and I didn't. So I knew a pastor who connected me with a restoration coach who brought me through the very earliest man course, because I called him up and I said, hey, will you help me feel like a man? Will you take me through this man course that I've heard you have? And he said to me, I don't have a man course. He goes, I don't have like a formal course planned out. He goes, would you be willing to help me develop it?
Wow.
So I developed with him the man course. And I would say that this man course is about an eighth, maybe a 16th of the current restoration process. So the information that I learned is also in there.
Yeah.
But what happened is we started, I would have like a man lesson once a week, like a restoration lesson. And I would do the assignment, and then I would follow up with how that changed my behavior, that helped me get in control of different things. And the testimonies that I have from going through this course are ridiculous. I walked an old lady home in a windstorm because that was one of the steps, was give a good cause to anyone.
Yeah.
So I, do step one towards anyone. Do something that's profitable, something that's beneficial towards anyone without looking for any sort of result from it. Just do it because it's the right thing. And it seems so simple. So I'm walking this old lady home in a windstorm, and this lady who I knew from working at Starbucks at the time rolls down her window. She's driving a big black Hummer. She rolls down the window, and she was actually recently engaged. that I found out. So she's a little bit older than me. She rolls down the window and yells through the wind, Jonathan, Jonathan. Here I am walking this old lady home in a windstorm. And she goes, I should be marrying you.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, all of the, like, I am the last one to find out what it means to actually be a man or operate as a man. But all of these women around me know when I'm being a boy. Or another way to say that is all of, it's so obvious to other people around me when I'm restored, when I can bear my burden, when I can actually handle my stuff the right way. So after going through that restoration process, I felt like a man and just immediately wanted to start taking other people through that course. All right, I learned this. Now let's help other males become secure in what it means to be a man the right way. How do I get into the man club the right way? Because I've tried for so many years doing it the wrong way, and I want to do it the right way. And so that's what happened. And from that, it's like, if you can see, from the outside now, Andrew, that this is me going, okay, how do I help all of these people? How do I help all of these sheep become adults, especially males? How do I help them grow up?
Right.
And that's very much what a pastor does. So that's my restoration story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fantastic. I think I'm probably going to use that story. I should be marrying you.
Yeah. The women, they know.
They know.
Right.
They know when a boy is being a boy or a man is being a man. They can see it better than anybody.
And there's so many stories. There's a lot of good stuff in my restoration process and what happened early on. It's so much fun.
That's beautiful. Thank you both so much for sharing. I feel like I got a lot out of just you guys sharing your stories. And I really only have one more question. And this is because it's really to Pastor Joel. I feel like I've been trying to grow my theology. I've been trying to, grow that muscle and become better at wrestling with doctrine, with explaining doctrine. And the more I do that, the more I learn about past theologians, the more I actually look up to you, because I feel like you are an expert theologian. And so my question is, we've got A.W. Tozer, we've got C.S. Lewis. When are you going to give us the J.B. Swakowski? When are you going to write a book? And if you did write a book, what would you write a book on?
Oh, great question.
Yeah. When am I going to write a book? Well, actually, okay. I'm going to pitch two things here for you.
Jacked. Blah, 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 blah.
Beautiful.
I don't know what to say. You got me. I'm speechless.
That's good, man. Great question.
Wow. Oh, man. I feel
Oh, great question.
So, the J.B. Swakowski book. There is a Swakowski Bible commentary that I would love to point everybody to, and that would be one thing that I mean, it's the Bible that I commentated on, so it's not necessarily my book, but that would be one direction to send people, because if I never wrote anything else, I'd be fine. And I feel like I contributed quite a bit to helping people understand doctrine of the Bible through that process, because that's really, that commentary's focus isn't just explaining what's going on in the Bible. It's trying, the effort is to try to explain the how and the why of the Bible, or what's the doctrine behind what we're reading. But I do have an idea for a book that was pitched to me. It had to be like 14 years ago. My son is about to turn 15. I think he was about 1 year old when I was pitched the idea of writing a book about the journey of a son through the eyes of his father. And
Wow.
so since my son has been around 1 or 2 years old, I've been keeping what I call the Jack Journal. So that is one book that I do plan on writing, is the journey, and it will really be a journey of a boy turning into a man through the eyes of his father. That is a book I plan on writing. I don't plan on writing any other book, but I am open to it. I would just need to know what would be the purpose of the book, and why would it need to be written? Because there are so many resources that Music Life Church already has available to people. Just writing a book for the sake of writing a book to get JB Swakowski out there, is as great as that might feel for me. I don't really care if people don't know my name. And so I would just need to know, like there is I want to pitch Pastor Jonathan's doctrine blog. And I mean, there is a blog you can go to that's free of charge, just like the Swakowski Bible Commentary. We both have our things online where you can go to his doctrine blog. And if you're interested in learning doctrine, that's a great place to start. And there's multiple times people and groups of people have taken that resource and have done classes with it to help people hear from God better and understand the doctrine. So I can't promise a book anytime soon. Although my son is towards the end in his last chapter of becoming a man, so it could be in the next couple of years that book's written. But as far as anything else, I would just probably point people to the Swakowski Bible Commentary.
Beautiful. I love the example of Jack, because I think right there we got a little glimpse of what Pastor Jonathan was saying earlier about how sensitive and heartfelt you really are underneath this cold, bearded exterior.
Yeah, you're right. Because so Jonathan's he's who I try to emulate.
Right.
But when I think about when I take the backward step of like what context that I operate in the most frequently do I feel the most caring, Jack's my standard there. So I know I need to be more like Jonathan, and usually the way for me to get there is by pretending whoever I'm interacting with is Jack.
Well, that's beautiful. Awesome. Well, those are all of my questions. Thank you so much for coming on my show and helping me understand a little bit more about the process behind making the podcast, about your relationship, and about yourselves. And I'm looking forward to season 3. Do you have any plugs for season 3 before we finalize everything?
Strap on your seatbelt.
Plugs for season 3. We are, as season 3 progresses, the topics get more and more emotional. So yeah, if God's nature wasn't emotional enough,
Yeah.
we're going deeper.
Are we saying emotional, like people may have a more visceral response?
Yes.
Oh.
We are making, potentially making people more and more upset.
Yeah.
And
those tend to be topics. It is, and it tends to be topics that are topics Jonathan and I care more about, because they tend to be the more emotional people outside of us talking about this get about the topics we're covering is usually in response to the importance of needing to cover that topic. It can be seen as a measure of like, yeah, people are going to get mad at this, and that's really one of the reasons we know we should talk about it, is because people lose their minds when this topic comes up.
Okay, man, I'm excited. I'm on the edge of my seat in suspense. Thank you both so much for your time. We're going to sign off. I've been Andrew Minczeski. My guests have been Pastor Joel Swakowski of Music of Life Church Kimberly and Pastor Jonathan Fries of Music of Life Church Appleton. Thank you both so much. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Andrew.